Hello Data Pros, and welcome back to another exciting video in our Databricks learning series. In today's video, we're breaking down two key topics in Databricks. First, the Data Lakehouse, which is an architectural concept, and then, Delta Lake, the implementation framework that turns this concept into reality. Whether you're just starting with Databricks or looking to level up your skills, understanding these topics is crucial for efficiently designing solutions on the Databricks platform. Let's begin with the Data Lakehouse. We'll first explore the journey that the industry has taken, from data warehouse to data lake, and finally to the data lakehouse. In the early days, the industry needed a way to store and process data for analysis, and the data warehouse became the ultimate choice. The key strength of a data warehouse is its ability to store structured data. Think of data that fits neatly into tables with rows and columns, like customer information, sales records, and inventory data. This structure made it easy to run business intelligence queries and generate reports. The companies could analyze this data using SQL, and everything was organized and clean. However, as the volume, velocity, and variety of data grew, data warehouses struggled to keep up. The industry needed a new approach to handle unstructured data, like logs, social media posts, images, and more. This led to the creation of the data lakes. Now, data from various sources could be ingested into the data lake and stored in its raw form, ready for further processing. You can run ad hoc analytics, artificial intelligence, and machine learning workflows directly on the data lake. However, for more structured business intelligence and routine data analytics, a traditional data warehouse is still necessary on top of the data lake. While the data lake provided flexibility in storing all types of data, it didn't offer the structure needed to efficiently analyze the data. Without proper organization and governance, this raw data could become difficult to manage. This situation often led to what was known as a data swamp, where valuable data was buried under disorganized, unstructured files. And that's where the data lakehouse comes in. The lakehouse architecture combines the best of both worlds, the flexibility of the data lake, with the governance and performance of the data warehouse. It allows you to store all types of data, much like a data lake, while also supporting efficient analytics and high-performance queries, similar to a data warehouse. To further enhance our understanding, and to clearly distinguish between a data lake and a data lakehouse, think of a data lake as a centralized repository, like AWS S3, Google Cloud Storage, or Azure Storage. It's designed to store large volumes of diverse data types and formats, all organized into files and folders. While it offers flexibility in storing various data formats, it lacks metadata and transactional log management. As a result, it doesn't support key enterprise data warehouse features such as schema enforcement, ACID transactions, performance optimizations, data governance, time travel, and SQL support. To address these challenges, a separate data warehouse layer is often required, which introduces additional costs and data redundancy. On the other hand, a data lakehouse is also a centralized repository, like AWS S3, Google Cloud Storage, or Azure Storage, designed to store large volumes of diverse data types and formats. However, datasets are mostly organized into tables and columns. For example, a JSON file can be stored as a string column, and images or videos can be stored as binary columns within the table. Data Lakehouse combines the flexibility of a data lake with the features of an enterprise data warehouse by adding metadata and transactional log management, enabling support for features that were previously unavailable in a data lake. As a result, this eliminates the need for a separate data warehouse, reducing costs and data redundancy, while offering a unified solution. Now, let's move on to our next topic, Delta Lake. Delta Lake is a widely used open-source framework for implementing the Lakehouse architecture, which we've been discussing so far. It's important to understand how the Delta Lake framework stores and manages data. As we know, Databricks uses one of these cloud services for its storage layer. When you create a new table in Databricks, a folder is created with the table's name in this storage layer. This folder stores both the data and the transaction log associated with the table. Now, let's focus on one table and dive a little deeper. Inside the main table folder, there's a folder called Delta Log. This folder stores all the metadata for your table, recording details of every transaction, such as inserts, updates, deletes, and schema modifications. These details are essential for features like ACID transaction control, table versioning, time travel, data recovery, and auditing. The Delta log also stores statistics like the minimum and maximum values for each column in the data files. Using these stats, the Delta Lake engine can skip over data files based on the predicates in your query's where clause. This process is called file pruning, and it brings significant performance benefits. I'm just scratching the surface here, but the transaction log is the foundation for many advanced features in Delta Lake, which we'll cover in upcoming videos. Every transaction generates two files in the Delta log folder, a JSON file and a CRC file. The JSON file holds transaction-level statistics, including information about the changes made to the table and the min-max values. On the other hand, the CRC file ensures the integrity of the transaction and contains table-level statistics, such as total size, file count, and schema at the end of the current transaction. It's important to note that for every 10th transaction, the transaction details from the start to the current transaction are merged into a highly optimized Parquet checkpoint file. This helps improve performance as the table grows by reducing the need to read multiple small JSON and CRC files. Next, let's talk about the data files. These are where the actual table data is stored. Whether it's numeric, string, timestamp, or more complex data like JSON, images, or videos, it all gets stored in a compressed and optimized Parquet format. Generally, one data file is created for each transaction. However, at regular intervals, Databricks combines multiple small files into one larger data file for better performance. This process is called table compaction, and you can also trigger it manually with the optimize table command. It's time to dive into Databricks and take a closer look at how the underlying data files and transaction logs are managed in the Delta Lake framework. We're investing time in breaking down these concepts because they are foundational as we progress into advanced Databricks topics. This is the demo we did in our last video. We can in fact load this data into a Delta table with this code. However, I would like to create another notebook and work on a different example for this lab. Let's set the default language as SQL. To begin, I'll create a table. Since we haven't specified a schema, it will be created in the default database or schema. Now, let's describe the table to check the storage location. Next, I'm listing the contents of that location. As you can see, there is only the Delta log folder. Particularly, there are no data files at this point. This is because we haven't loaded any data into the table yet. Looking further into the Delta log folder, we can see there's one CRC file and one JSON file. Now, let's take a look at the contents of the CRC file. This file shows the transaction ID after which this CRC file was created, along with the table statistics collected after the transaction was successfully completed. Since we haven't loaded any data yet, most of the statistics are 0 or blank. Next, let's check the contents of the JSON file. Here, we can see more detailed transaction-level information, such as who performed the transaction, what operation was done, the notebook ID, and the cluster ID involved. Once we load data, we'll see more statistics here. Let's move on and load our first record. I'll repeat the steps I did earlier. This time, we will see one data file created, along with an additional set of JSON and CRC files. Let's open the data file. Although it's not fully readable, you can see it contains the actual data that was loaded. The CRC file has updated table-level statistics. Similarly, the JSON file has updated transaction-level details. Some important things to note here. Since this is an insert operation, a file is added. Later, I'll demonstrate an update and a delete operation so you can see how these actions differ. Please take a look at the min-max values. In this case, they are the same because there's only one record in the specific data file. Next, I'll show you a multi-row insert transaction, so you can see how things behave when more records are added. Let's go through the same steps again to reinforce our understanding. This time, the data file contains all 5 rows that were inserted. On the other hand, the JSON file in the Delta log folder only shows the min-max values, particularly not all 5 rows. These statistics are useful for performance optimizations. For example, if you run a query with a where clause filtering by employee ID 7, the Delta engine can use these min and max values to skip processing the corresponding data file and any other files that don't meet the where clause condition. This happens at the metadata layer, without even having to read the large data files. While we are dealing with just 5 rows in this case, in real-world deployments, a single data file might contain millions of rows. This file pruning approach helps the system avoid processing such data files unnecessarily, which can greatly improve performance. Now, let's try an update transaction. As you can see, the update does not modify any existing data file directly, instead it has created altogether a new data file. If we further examine the transaction logs, we can understand that it marks the relevant data file as removed, and adds a new data file with the updated column values. We updated the name from Rob to Robert. As part of this, Delta Lake created a new file with the value Robert, but still retains the old file as is, with the value Rob. Although the original data file still exists in the data layer, it is ignored during normal queries. However, if you use the time travel feature, the data files marked as removed can still be accessed. The Delta engine facilitates this by leveraging the transaction timestamp and other details stored in the transaction log. Please take a look at this non-record statistics. In case of updates, both the old and new data files are expected to have the same record count, something like what you see on the screen. Lastly, let's execute a delete transaction. By this time, I'm sure most of you could guess what to expect. A new data file is added. Along with it, a new set of JSON and CRC files are created in the Delta log folder. On further exploration of the transaction logs, you'll notice that a delete operation also results in a file being removed and a new file being added. However, if you closely examine the num records, the old file contains 5 records, while the new file has only 4 records. This confirms that the deleted record was excluded while creating the new file, something like what you see on the screen. It's worth repeating that the old data file is marked as removed only in the transaction log, so it won't be considered in the current version of the table. However, the actual old data file is still preserved, allowing for time travel and recovery if needed. In addition to what we've already discussed, there are a few more differentiating factors of Delta Lake compared to other frameworks and platforms. In Databricks, Delta Lake is built on top of cloud object storage services like S3, Azure Storage, or Google Cloud Storage. That means it takes full advantage of its low-cost, highly durable, and highly available storage, resulting in one of the best price-to-performance ratios in the industry. Moreover, Delta Lake's enterprise-grade data analytics capabilities eliminate the need for a separate data warehouse, further reducing overall costs. Another standout feature of Delta Lake is its compatibility with a wide range of popular data processing engines. By using open formats, Delta Lake ensures that data stored in this format can be accessed and processed by various engines such as Databricks, any Spark-based platform, Presto, Trino, Apache Hive, Apache Flink, and more, without depending on the engine that originally processed or loaded the data. That's all for today. Please stay tuned for our next video where we'll explore more Databricks topics. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with the latest technologies. Thanks for watching.